Yeah.
We are going live in 5. Well, actually, you know what? Let me do this.
Like we're live right now, brother.
Give me a second here so I can get these videos pulled up.
Yeah.
We are going live in 5. Well, actually, you know what? Let me do this.
Like we're live right now, brother.
All right. Give me a second here so I can get these. We are live. Hello and welcome. We are getting it together here, but we want to welcome you all to our first ever connection across the board. We're so excited to have you all here joining us today. My name is Dr. Shawn Best. I'm the University Director for the CUNY Black Male Initiative, and we're so excited to have you all join us today. We had some technical difficulties, but we figured it out together as a group, and so we're excited to have you all for our first ever collaboration event called And Still We Rise, and education and empowering the young Black male in New York City. We're so excited to be joined by powerhouses that are here on our panel today, as well as a keynote speaker that you're all going to be excited to hear from today. And so before I go too much further into introductions of who we all are, let me just talk about our keynote address speaker for a little bit. So Shawn Dove is the president and CEO of Campaign for Black Male Achievement. He has been a stalwart in supporting Black and Latino men across not only New York City, but also across the United States for many, many years. He was starting off by just being a Harlem young man who went to UCLA, as he likes to say, the University of the corner of Lenox Avenue, where he was able to help, become—
You're stealing my lines, man. You're stealing my lines.
I'm stealing it? Oh, man, I'm taking all the good stuff. But he's been not only a stalwart in terms of educating and connecting people, but also just a personal mentor to me, who's been helping build the CUNY Black Male Initiative. He's been a mentor to the other men on these panels as well, Dr. Mahaliel, Bethea, who runs the New York City version of My Brother's Keeper, Jordan Stockdale, who runs the Young Men's Initiative at the mayor's office, and also William Anders, who runs NYC Mentee. We've been watching you, Shawn, for years. You've been a mentor in helping us and teaching us the way to grow programs that support men of color, specifically Black men and boys. And we're so delighted to have you here. And so what I want to do is, we only have a little bit of a time together today with you. I want to start by just launching your video and sharing with us some of the good work that you've been doing in your organization for years, and really have a chance for the audience to see how some of the work that you have done has really impacted New York City over the past generations of young men who are getting the support that we need. So what I'm going to do is, Shawn, ask you, as I'm loading the video, just to give a quick introduction of who you are, say hello to the people, and then I'm going to launch your video and we'll get into your talk in just a second.
Great. I'm going to just launch with a poem, if you don't mind. Just thrilled to be here and excited about this collaboration. And Dr. Shawn Best, you are the best, Shawn, and I appreciate your leadership and everybody on the screen. I just want folks to know that whilst at Poetry in Motion, I stopped to look for a brother with ways to write a book. Arrange round me with a story to tell, a billion brothers who knew all too well about unwritten words that unwillingly die, before bred and bound and able to fly. Why do my brother's words wear weights of woe? My ears to the ground, I'm dying to know. We must give our words wings so they can sing a song for all brothers they will bring. The ability to dream, to fly, and to soar. It's to you, my brothers, these words are for. To give your words a life, you must sit and write your story with tales of what life is like. Do me a favor and set your words free, because I need to hear them. Do it for me. That's a Shawn Dove original from 1988. And That's my introduction and the power of all of our stories and our ability to collectively tell our stories and to collectively defy gravity and soar together.
Fantastic, Shawn. Thank you so much. All right, so what I'd like to do is just for you all to watch this video that is heart-moving, that talks about some of Shawn's work he's done in the country to really move the needle for Black men and boys, and a story of the campaign for Black male achievement. So please watch this with us, and then we'll be right back to hear Shawn, take it away right after this video so we can hear your story and the importance of us collaborating as programs around the city that are supporting this important work.
There's no cavalry coming to save the day in our communities. We are the iconic leaders that we've been waiting for. We are the curators of the change we're seeking to see. Black male achievement is about the potential, beauty, and humanity of every single Black boy that's born in the United States.
At our core, American values are about equality, opportunity, democracy. And in each of those values, Black men and boys have suffered greatly.
We cannot say that we have succeeded as a country when the entire demographic continues to fail by little fault of their own.
My name is Shawn Dove, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Campaign for Black Male Achievement. I think I've been prepared for this work since I was born. I didn't grow up with my dad. Never woke up one day to say good morning to my father. My mother was a single mom, and around that time, I began to hang out in the streets. I grew up in a drug culture. I was getting deeper and deeper into my addiction. One of my best friends said there's this youth program, they're giving away uniforms and sneakers for their basketball team. And it was called the Dome Project. The executive director was a man named John Simon. And I remember one day he said to me, "You have potential, Shawn. You spend less time on the corner of 80th Street and Amsterdam Avenue, you can do things." I came to learn that the right word from the right person at the right time can have a transformational impact. And joined the Open Society Foundations in 2008 when they were launching the Campaign for Black Male Achievement. Hiring Rashid Shabazz was one of the smartest things that I did. And we had a unique ability to navigate both the boardroom and the block.
So often when we come together in these spaces around Black men, it's in their death. It's in their suffering. But how often do we get into a room to celebrate greatness?
We have a lot of politicians, individuals who still drive a narrative that if young Black men will pull up their pants, if they would just cut their hair, that they will get that job, they will get to college. The reality is that there's a history of barriers that complicate that. We need to eliminate those barriers so Black men can truly thrive and be who they are supposed to be. I think the most important thing that CBMA has contributed to this work is bringing together many different people from spaces all across the country who are thinking about policy, who are thinking about education, who are thinking about culture, to understand how we could collectively engage.
We are renewed, we are restored, and we are ready for the rumble.
Rumble, young man, rumble. It's celebrating the principles of Muhammad Ali with mentors and organizers and community leaders from across the country and having conversations about how we heal as Black men.
We are an African people. We are an African people.
We'll strive to bring new values and new life for our people.
It is incredibly important for young Black boys to see strong Black men of all types conspiring for their success.
I identify myself as a leader, an innovator, and a game changer.
I identify myself as outspoken, outgoing, and a servant of the community.
Narrative really is a critical part to transforming the lives and opportunities for Black men and boys. We came up with this idea called Black Male Reimagined. What if we brought together our cultural entertainers, our branders, our marketers, all centering around this question, what can we do to reimagine Black men and boys in people's minds.
We provide opportunities for diversification on the air, for businesses to be built, for brands to be established.
Criminal justice should be tied directly to what we know are full investments in the life chances of young people in our community.
There's a lot of work that we can all do to hold media accountable in terms of the images they're showing and the images that they're calling reality.
We are united. We are standing. And we are going to fight this fight together.
After the death of Trayvon, I remember feeling emotional to the point where I was crying. And I couldn't realize why I was crying, only in the sense that I had no faith in the justice system. What inspired me at that moment, though, was knowing that there's a generation of young people that rallied to create a sense of urgency.
We know that justice for Black life is justice for humanity. We see the hopelessness of a generation that has been broken, trying to find its place in this world. We understand that we need to turn anger into action and pain into power.
In this midst of still wrestling with the death of Trayvon, I remember, I think I got a text from Shawn that the president's talking about Black men and boys.
When Trayvon Martin was first shot, I said that this could have been my son. Another way of saying that is Trayvon Martin could have been me.
To see a sitting president of the United States who's a Black man, dusting off his shoulder, you know what I'm saying? Like, at the same time saying, I could be Trayvon. It's saying the complicated reality that we live in.
Shortly after this speech, Rashid and I were called to the West Wing, and White House staffers said, we need your help.
CBMA brought a depth of research. The White House folks were able to look back at what CBMA had done to convene and to assemble, and were able to really learn from that.
That meeting with Shawn inspired the president to take this issue on, and he created My Brother's Keeper.
There's so much the world would not be without the campaign for Black male achievement. It shifted the atmosphere. It shifted the way in which people talk. And in democracy, that's supposed to be a promise for all, the absence of that promise fulfilled for Black men and boys is actually an unfulfilled promise for America.
We often ask the question, how do you quantify hope? For someone to believe in you before you even believe in yourself, there is hope.
In the end, this is about making sure that all of the people in America have an equal opportunity to be successful and lead lives where they reach their full potential.
Thank you, Shawn, for showing the video. And I just want to say good evening to everyone. I am just honored and thrilled to...
Welcome back. This is the 100 Millionaires Podcast.
All right. Was that just an announcement that this partnership between MBK and New York, the Young Men's Initiative, and CUNY Strong just got $100 million? Was that what that was all about?
Listen, from your lips to God's ears, man. Let's see what happens.
So yeah, I truly believe the power of a declaration and speaking a thing. As a young boy growing up in New York City, I was a big comic book head, and the Fantastic Four was one of my favorite comic books, and I really loved the Human Torch. And the thing about the Human Torch, we know the Human Torch as Johnny Storm, but the thing about the Human Torch is he would never turn into fire until he said, what? Flame on. I thought we were going to get a little call and response here. And I wasn't even planning on talking about the Human Torch, but you got me there. And I am here to say that there's power in declaration. And so much of what you saw in that video lifted up the power of declaration. The Campaign for Black Male Achievement was originally supposed to be a 3-year campaign. And because of the power of declaration, because of collaboration and what I see on this screen, because of connections, because community, because courage, we were able to extend that 3-year initial term limit into 12 years. And we just sunsetted operations of the campaign for Black Male Achievement. We ended that season. And I'm here to tell you that everybody I see on the screen, everyone that's listening, that reminds me that our work was not done in vain, that you all have so much to build on. And what we can't do alone, we can do together. I always think of what the founder of PolicyLink, Angela Glover Blackwell, used to always tell me. She used to say, Shawn, if you have a goal that you can do by yourself, your goal is not big enough. So my challenge in this partnership in New York City, and all eyes are on New York City. New York City was where the Young Men's Initiative was launched, and the President Obama looked at what was happening in New York City as a model for what's possible. So I'm here to say, let's collaborate, but also for all of us, let's work harder on don't work harder on ourselves than we do on our jobs. And I lifted up the courage, I lifted up the community, I lifted up the connection legacy for the campaign for Black Male Achievement. You know, we all want to serve, we all want to give, we all want to manifest the mission in the scripture of to whom much is given, that much more is required. But we must take care of ourselves. And y'all saw my story, right? And Shawn, when he originally called me, he said at 4 o'clock, I said, Shawn, I can't be there. Every Thursday at 4 o'clock, I'm in therapy. If anything, I just want to lift up the power of self-care, right? And y'all saw my story. 31 years ago, my plan at the end of my addiction, the end of my run, end of my active addiction, my plan was to jump on the tracks at 34th Street and Penn Station and grab the third rail. Thank God I didn't do that. Thank God I had a reason to live. And I look at what has happened the last 31 years. And it's important for me to say that because I just feel that there is somebody on this line, somebody watching or someone that is watching that is like, this is too much. I can't do it. The pandemic has been rough. I see it in my own family. I see it in my own two boys and my two daughters. And I'm here to say that vulnerability in asking for help is a strength. Right. And I remember when we look at, I see Jordan, who's leading the Young Men's Initiative. I remember very vividly being in a meeting at the Open Society Foundation, a staff meeting, and someone came into the big conference room and they called me out and they said, Mr. George Soros is on the line. He'd like to talk to you. And I was like, oh God, what did I do? George Soros wants to speak to me. And George Soros said to me, he said, you know, I got a call from Mike Bloomberg and he wants me to match $30 million to launch something called the Young Men's Initiative. Do you think I should do it? And my first thought was like, that's your $30 million. You asking me? And I said, yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I said, but the campaign for Black Male Achievement don't have that kind of budget. He said, I didn't ask you that. I just asked you if you think I should do it, right? And in that moment, George Soros said, yes. Imagine that kind of conversation. Maybe one day we'll be able to have that kind of conversation where I can like call William and I say, William, will you match my $30 million to launch something on behalf of our people? But I also learned in my time that, yes, you need resources, right? You need billionaires for this work, right? That we have so many young people like Denver on this call that are counting on leaders like us, that are counting on us to disrupt systems. Yes, we need resources. Yes, we need billions. But you know what I'm going to say, we need millionaires as well. We need billionaires and we need millionaires. Folks that have the will to do what needs to be done. And sometimes millionaires just don't know how to take no for an answer, right? And I remember one of the things that CBMA was able to launch in partnership with Echo and Green was the first ever Black Male Achievement Fellowship for Social Entrepreneurs. And I remember my partner Rashid Shabazz was designing this, was working it. We were getting a lot of pushback, and we were like, he was like, look, I've done all I can do. You got to take this home. And I remember sitting in the office with the director of US programs, and I said, this is our proposal. We want to launch this national fellowship. And it was kind of disruptive, right? And I'm hoping that all of you in this partnership that you're looking to break some China, hoping that you're looking to disrupt some things. If folks are not mad at you, if you're not getting folks pissed off, then y'all not doing what y'all supposed to be doing. We're pushing the envelope. And I remember sitting in that meeting and I presented a proposal, I presented the budget, and this was a innovation. This was disruptive for the foundation because the foundation had its own fellowships, right? And the director looked at me and said, no, we can't do this. We don't have the budget. And I don't know what happened. I didn't say, okay. My mouth opened and I said, why not? She turned around, went to the calculator, pushed some numbers, and turned around. In less than 30 seconds, she said, we can do it. And I'm here to say that we all are going to have a why not moment in this work. Folks are going to say no. Folks are going to say, who do you think you are? But I'm encouraged in this collaboration in New York City of all these initiatives that this is an idea in a time that has come. And I know that we've danced around collaboration, but here's an opportunity that we're diving deep into it. And I would just like to say that I just hope that you lead with love. I hope that you lead with a sense of safety and creating a sense of safety for our young men. I hope that you have our young brothers at the table infusing this collaboration. What is it going to look like? We know we don't have Denver up here just for a window dressing, and I know he's going to say a few words that young people have to design what this collaboration looks like, and it also has to have a sense of belonging and a sense of ownership. You saw the video. We saw Trayvon Martin and what that catalyzed in 2012. How many hashtags have there been since then? And I just want you all to know, those that I can see and those that I cannot see, that you were all born for such a time as this. I've been running as I close with this quote from an Indian novelist, Arundhati Roy. She said that historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. What worked for us pre-pandemic is not working for us going forward. How can we imagine our world anew? And as I look at this collaboration of these New York City agencies, I see a world imagined anew. I wish I had time to tell you some UCLA stories from the university on the corner of Lenox Avenue, where we played freeze tag and where we played hot peas and butter. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Shawn, but within that freeze tag metaphor, I'm just going to ask all of us, and if y'all remember freeze tag, right? Those of us of that generation were outside, to be aware that there are folks amongst us that are frozen, that are depressed, that are stuck. And the way freeze tag worked, when you got tagged, you were frozen, and someone that wasn't it, they would have to come over and they would tag you to free you up. And I know that we're doing social distancing, but we can tag someone with the call. We can tag someone with the text. We don't know who amongst us, our friends, our colleagues, that are in a frozen state. So how do we touch one another in this age of social distancing? And so I'm tagging you, Shawn. You are it.
All right, so that means I don't freeze now. I can move, right? So,
that's right. You can move.
Cool.
And then you get to tag others.
Exactly. Man, listen, man, you brought up some memories with that hot peas and butter too, because that game hurt, but I used to love that game. But I appreciate you, Shawn Dove, for being here. I know we have only about 90 seconds or so more with you here, but just thinking about the vision that you've created that many of us are following as a template. I think about NYC Mentee and William Anderson, what he's doing to just galvanize hundreds and eventually thousands of Black male teachers in DOE. I think about Mahaliel, what he's doing with BK to just extend Obama's vision to helping support these men. Jordan was just on the Breakfast Club a couple weeks ago. He's a celebrity now, so we're lucky to have him be humble enough to be with us today. But just thinking about the template that you laid ahead, Shawn, and your own personal commitment and mission to what you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit about what's next for you? What's in your mind? What do you have that you think, as you have a portal to the future, for your own future and for what many people have been following you? I mean, it's not like you just, all of a sudden don't disappear from us. You probably are creating something in the back of your mind. We'd love to know what that is. If there's anything you're willing to share with us as far as your own corporation or anything projects you're working on.
Sure. I am in an intermission season, going into the third act of my leadership journey. Have a book coming out at the end of May that I co-wrote with Nick Childs. It's called I Too Am America, on loving and leading Black men and boys. It is equal parts a memoir, the power of story and my story, the historical account of CBMA, and the third part is a manifesto of where do we go from here that has the voices, about a dozen or so leaders from the field of Black male achievement. I've launched the Corporation for Black Male Achievement as an LLC. And mostly, Shawn, it is me getting clear on what is it that's mine to season. I believe that we all have a purpose. And I believe that CBMA in its 12 years, that was a season. And I see the seeds right here and the fruit. And I just want to close for you all very quickly, Shawn, that I'm going to charge all of you in this collaboration to focus on 5 things, 5 building blocks of this collaboration. And the first building block is building the infrastructure and the system and building the team and how you all are going to work together. Build the team and the infrastructure, right? The second building block is building capital. And yes, we need innovation, we need great ideas, but we need resources. How are you going to pool your money together, right? How does each of your $1,000, right, take your $6,000, and how do we parlay that into $12,000? So you got to focus on building capital. The other is building community. You have a network of followers. There are leaders all across New York City. Talk about a history maker in Black history. We got the first Black education chancellor in New York City, Lester Young. Call on him, right? He has launched the only statewide My Brother's Keeper initiative. You have so many people in your that you can reach out to. Build community. Build the brand is the fourth building block. What's the messaging? Let it be asset framed. And the fifth building block is building value and articulating what's the change. Being focused maniacally on the data and articulating what is different with all of you coming together.
That's awesome. Shawn Dove, thank you so much for the time. Thank you for being emotionally, spiritually, and just physically available to all of us. And we look forward to helping you in your mission as you help us with ours. And we appreciate your time together today, man.
I'm here for you. Can I stay on? Are you kicking me off?
Of course, you can stay on.
Okay, all right, great. I want to stay on.
Please
I
do.
love
Please
y'all.
do.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Shawn Dove has been also serving on our advisory board for the CUNY Black Male Initiative and giving us great insight and ideas along the way. He was with Dr. Jermaine Wright when he was in charge and kind of extending with us beyond that. And so I really appreciate your commitment to our work. So with that being said, I want to jump into the second half of our time together today and having a panel discussion with these leaders who are doing this work in different different aspects around New York City. And we are lucky to have an amazing panelist today. We have Denver Nesbitt, make sure I'm saying his name correctly, Denver Nesbitt, who is actually the 2020 alumni of My Brother's Keeper fellow program, and also currently a freshman at Brown University. He's gonna introduce himself, but Denver's gonna be taking over this panel, and we're gonna be joining him on this journey. So Denver, it's all yours, take it away.
Hello, good evening. Thank you so much, Mr. Best. And then thank you so much to Mr. Dove for that amazing keynote address. Great messaging about self-care and just the importance of collaboration. So thank you for that. Good evening, everyone. And once again, welcome to And Still We Rise, the education and elevation of young men of color in NYC. My name is Denver Nesbitt Jr., and I'm a proud 2020 alumni of the My Brother's Keeper Fellow Program and currently a freshman at Dartmouth College. I'm excited to serve as the panel moderator for this event. The focus of tonight's panel is changing the narrative through program, partnership, and collaboration. This evening, our panelists are all part of leading organizations created with the mission of changing the narrative of boys and young men of color to cradle to college in New York City. At this time, I'll have each of the panelists introduce themselves and tell you about why they're engaging in that work to create those necessary villages of support for our young men of color. I'll start with Mr. Anders.
Thank you, Nevin. Appreciate it. Good to have you here tonight. My name is William Anders, University Director of NYC Mentee at the City University of New York. The NYC Mentee Initiative is an initiative that was started by Mayor Bill de Blasio in 2015, and it was an initiative to really focus on bringing more men of color into the classroom across New York City. Really looking at the student population, which were students of color, majority students of color, and then looking at the teaching population, and then really kind of trying to fill in the gaps of what's really needed. And the bottom line was there were a very low amount of men of color. So the NYC Mentee Initiative is an initiative that was put in place to help to increase, to recruit, and also retain and support men of color to become teachers in the New York City classrooms. NYC Men teaches a collaboration between the Young Men's Initiative, who Executive Director Jordan Stockdale, you'll hear from his brother later, the Department of Education, Shamir Stevens, who is the recruitment lead within the Department of Education, and Richard Haynes, who is the teacher development lead from the Department of Education. And then you have the CUNY system. So all three of us playing in the sandbox and helping to, all of us working together in a partnership and really figuring out how can we move the needle? How can we make this thing work? How can we encourage men of color to get into a school system and to lead in a system that historically has not treated them well? So I'll speak just on my part because I know there's other people that are going to be speaking as well. But as far as for CUNY, this program exists on 15 different college campuses across all 5 boroughs of New York City. And this work is not done alone. There are program managers who work long and hard hours, really working with their students after hours, late hours, early morning. During the pandemic, those hours don't count. It's just 24 hours at this point. But really working to the needs of the students, really trying to working with aspiring teachers who want to become teachers, making teaching sexy again, so to speak. Really helping to fulfill the need, the holistic need of teachers of color, of male teachers of color, and really just understanding the education system from a different lens and understanding the role that they play, the importance that they play, and the need for men of color into the classroom. So I'll get off my soapbox now. We'll talk a little bit later in detail, but again, thank you for having me, and I'm glad to be here tonight with you all.
Awesome, thanks for the introduction. Dr. Bethea?
Yes, afternoon or evening to everybody, depending on where you're watching from. I am Dr. Mahaliel Bethea. I have the distinct honor of serving as director of My Brother's Keeper grant-funded programs. with the New York City Department of Education. And so I bring greetings, of course, on behalf of our senior director, George Patterson, our entire MBK Central team. We're really excited to be part of the conversation today. And Will, I'm going to let you know that teaching is sexy. As a former teacher, right? As a former teacher, and just some background for me, right? I've been doing this work for about 15 years now. I started as a history teacher in the South Bronx. And moved through the ranks, became a founding principal, and then arrived here. And that entire time, I have been doing the work of educating Black and Brown young men. So I've been working in all male schools and all male environments. And so it's really exciting to bring my expertise to this level and to this group of distinguished and esteemed brothers. In terms of why I'm doing the work, Denver, to be honest, it's because I am this work, right? I've been able to, I've seen, and it's so interesting going after Will, I've seen the consequences of wanting to be a teacher, but feeling like society, like almost is like, you a Black man going to college and you're gonna be a teacher, right? And coming from a family where my mom was a teacher, and is a teacher, she's in year 32 now, her not wanting me to be a teacher, right? Because, of some of these stigmas that surround the teaching, the profession. And so the work that I'm engaging in is really around supporting young men from pre-K to 12, really in finding their voice, their vision, finding their space, and supporting, alongside, these organizations and building the village, right? That's going to make sure that these young men feel safe, supported, and ready to take on the world, and frankly, their rightful place. And so that's why I'm engaged in the work and excited to be here tonight.
Great stuff, great stuff. Dr. Bess?
Awesome. Well, I feel like I'm talking a lot tonight, but I'm excited to share a little bit about my journey as well. Denver, thank you so much. So first thing first, the CUNY Black Male Initiative has been a city council funded program for the past 15 years to primarily support Black and Latino men at the CUNY system, but we're open to any student who wants to be a part of the CUNY Black Male Initiative across the CUNY system. We serve pre-college students, community college, senior college, law school, graduate students, and medical school students. And so even one of my team members, Jorge Alguera, who's a university assistant director, who's on this call, but also in class at the same time at the CUNY Law School, was supported also by the CUNY Black Male Initiative program at the CUNY Law Pipeline to Justice. So we're lucky to serve thousands of students across the system under the leadership of my boss, Ian James, Dr. Ian James, who is an executive assistant to the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. And that Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs is our new boss, Dr. Denise Maybank, who's been here for about 100 days and has come from Michigan State. So we have a great, robust team that's behind us supporting this work across 31 projects, across 24 CUNY schools. And again, the reason that I do this work is so connected to who I am as a person. Growing up in Middletown, New York, upstate, it's always a difference between the state schools and the city schools. And so even when I was back and thought I had an aspiring basketball career, we would always run into the Stephon Marburys and be like, oh, actually, we don't play that well. And so we'd come up and realize that, in college, I had a chance to be a part of student groups and clubs that were primarily supporting Black and Latino leaders. I wasn't sure exactly why they were important to me, but I knew they were. Got to NYU, helped my mentor, Alan McFarland, start the Brothers for Success program through the New York Times funded program, grant program there. And so we were able to support Black and Latino men at NYU. Again, couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I knew it was an important community. And then as I got into the workforce and began seeing in every sector and every structure that the foundation of corporations is really rooted in white supremacy at the bottom line, right? End of the day, corporations were not designed to bring equity and to put us on par as Black and Latino men with the rest of society. So we've always been seen as the hyper-visible Black man, the one who achieves and graduates college and gets that role. It's like the corporations and communities are proud of us, but then we have thousands behind us who are not getting opportunities, who are not getting access, who are not getting equity and the training they need to be successful in similar ways to their white counterparts. So as we're thinking about this, this work is so important to me because it really stems from my own background, having a mom as a school teacher, a dad as a pastor. It was inspiring to me from them to say, always look at yourself as the person who can do it, and to believe in yourself before you expect anyone else to believe in you. And so I bring that energy to my students and to my work every day, and love the work. It's really a passion for me. So a little bit about us, and we'll talk more about it more later on. Thank you, Denver.
Awesome. The energy is appreciated. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Stockdale.
Yeah, thank you. This panel has been so inspiring, and Shawn Dove's words, I'm still thinking about them right now. And just, just amazing colleagues on this call that get up every day to help others. And I really see that as their mission. And so it's just amazing to work with y'all. So I'm the executive director of the Young Men's Initiative, and we invest and co-manage programs across criminal justice reform, workforce development, health, and education. And that includes mentoring. And at YMI, we really believe that you have to be able to see yourself in success to be successful. So we fund a number of mentoring programs that try to harness New York's incredible human capital, particularly human capital of color, to mentor our young people to their potential. And so we recently launched the Mentors Matter program, which provides mentoring to thousands of students this year. And it has 3 components. The first is a partnership with 100 Black men to expand their Junior 100 program, and also offer other mentoring opportunities to young people throughout the year. And actually right now, if you want to be a mentee, the application is still open for that, or a mentor for that matter. And so you can email us at ymi@cityhall.nyc.gov. That's ymi@cityhall.nyc.gov. If you want to be a mentee or mentor. We also expanded CUNY Tutor Corps and partnered with Menteach to ensure that diverse CUNY students are able to tutor our DOE students. So CUNY Tutor Corps is a program that pays CUNY students to tutor and mentor a slightly younger version of themselves in the DOE schools. And lastly, we recently allocated $500,000 to community-based organizations that offer tutoring, mentoring, and social emotional support, and are on the ground every day helping our young people. And so that's been our commitment to mentoring and the importance of that. And just a little bit about myself, I'm a former teacher as well, so a lot of educators here in East Harlem. And being a teacher, you see day in and day out what your students need. And they need holistic supports beyond what can just be offered in the classroom. And I think that's what inspired me to get into government and inspired me every day in our work right now.
Awesome stuff. Well, first and foremost, thank you all panelists for coming this evening. It's greatly appreciated your time. Mr. Enes, I want to start with you. What is the importance and potential impact of having male teachers of color? And how is New York City's Men's Teach supporting and building a strong core of male teachers in New York City?
Thank you for that question. It's funny because the first question that in most of our forums that we ask people in our audience are, think back to your K through 12 days, and we ask people to raise their hand. If you had more than 2 male teachers of color, raise your hand. And it doesn't matter if we have 50 people. Doesn't matter if we have 75 people or 100 people or 200 people. You always have a very small few amount of people who raise their hand. So it shows to the lack of a connection that took place in the K through 12 experience. But if we want to take it into the data portion and we want to look at the studies, studies actually show that having a Black male teacher, especially between grades 3 and 5, decreased the dropout rates amongst Black male students, and by 30%, and it increases the likelihood of Black students aspiring to higher ed. So there's a link. There's something to this. It's not a matter of just my opinion. It's not a matter of what I think. It's not a matter of me being a Black male and me being biased. This is the research. This is the data, right? Relationships impact instruction, and that's what the data is showing. Black boys need guidance and mentorship and Black male teachers, and that's what they're getting from Black male teachers in the classroom. So there's something to this work, but the problem is that when you look on a national level, Black male teachers only comprise of 2% of the U.S. teaching force. So the mission of NYC Mentee is to not only be the blueprint, but it's more so to focus on increasing that number, getting more Black male teachers into the classroom to match the student population. Instead of suspending the students, then you have teachers that are understanding, that have more of a connection with the students. And this is not to say that all Black male teachers have a magical power to the point where there's a connection with everyone, But again, with the research showing that there's something to it and that there is more of a connection than I would say that has been given credit in the past. So the work that we're actually doing on CUNY's campuses, again, it's a matter of connecting with the student as opposed to focusing on pushing the content. The content will come, right? But we have to build relationships. And through the NYC Mentee program on the different campuses, it's really a matter about building community. So although New York City is 8-9 million strong, and there's 5 boroughs that span across, the city, we really focus on making that human connection, connecting students who are aspiring teachers in the Bronx, who have a connection with an aspiring teacher in Brooklyn. Speaking of brothers in Staten Island who have their own trials and tribulations, who are connecting to brothers in Queens, and really bringing everybody to the table and having that deeper discussion and really understanding and really bringing understanding to the fight and the understanding of what it looks like. Also, in the CUNY system, so if we're talking about 2% of teachers in the US are make up the teaching force, what does that look like for a CUNY student who's in a teaching ed program on a campus? You think there's a lot of Black males males of color that are in the classroom with them? So we talk about building community because we understand that community is the foundation to a lot of our backgrounds. We come from some type of community or some kind of connection. So how do you build that connection? And really being there as not only as program managers, but really being there as mentors and really focusing on being mentors of bringing those resources to those students in order to help them be successful. Standardized testing. We understand, we all know the details and we all know the research on standardized testing, but how do we bring resources to help those students of color who have to take the New York State education exams and pass the those exams in order to become teachers? Bringing resources to help overcome those humps, those trials and tribulations. Working closely with YMI, working closely with BMI, because that's another program that exists within CUNY who we have connection with, and we understand our mission and making that connection of the importance of villaging and really bringing together the community of, hey, we're not going to work in silos. We're not crabs in a bucket. We all have a mission, and that's to advance men of color in the direction of moving forward. So that's the connection that we make on CUNY's campuses. That's the connection that we're making in NYC Mentee. And we all understand, and we're very passionate about this work. And we understand the bottom line is it's not about us. I'm not the expert. All of us together are what push this work forward, and we understand that. And that's the importance of the partnership, regardless of what borough we live in.
Yeah. To piggyback on your point of connection, Mr. Stockdale, I wanted to ask you, as the executive director of the Young Men's Initiative, how have you partnered with organizations both on and off this panel to positively impact boys and young men of color?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that question. So we partner with everyone on this call, which is great. With Shawn and the Black Male Initiative, we partnered to expand the BMI Ambassador Program, which pays young people, CUNY students, BMI students, to tutor DOE students as well as develop the Justice Series, which I'll let Shawn talk about more. I don't want to steal his stuff. We also are partnering with Mentee Always, and we're launching a new media campaign with Mentee to show New Yorkers what Mentee does, and then to encourage more males of color to apply to become teachers. And so, that's a really important campaign that's going to launch shortly. We recently partnered with the Civilian Complaint Review Board to launch their first ever education campaign in the agency's 27-year history. And the Civilian Complaint Review Board is the oversight agency of the NYPD. So it's really important that young people know that if they experience misconduct, police misconduct, that there's an avenue, there's an agency rather, for them to contact that can ensure that there's some disciplinary, if the ruling substantiated, that there's a disciplinary measure taken. So that's another campaign. We are also going to partner with everyone here to write a report that shows our programming, our collective programming from cradle to career that the city and CUNY and DOE is offering. And so we're really excited to do that in the coming months.
Apologies for the technical difficulties. Dr. Bethea, I wanted to ask you, There have been many efforts, include some discussed today, about supporting boys and young men of color. What seems to be different now? And what seems to be unique?
I think what's different now is this, right? I think that we all of us on this panel have had the benefit of the Shawn Doves, right? Have the benefit of individuals that have really paved some substantial way for us to then make the decision to not work in silos, right? And I think a lot about those five marks that Shawn charged us with. But I really think the difference right now is that we're seeing people tired, right? On both sides of the fence. And what I mean by that is we see people that are in these roles, that like sitting in these positions, that are tired of working in silo, that are acknowledging like we need to work together if we are really in the spirit of upward mobility for boys and young men of color. And I also think what's different now is we're seeing a different type of social justice reaction, right? We're seeing, and I think the pandemic has kind of shown us that, where we're seeing young people saying, no, I deserve to be seen, I deserve to be heard, and I'm not going to be passive about that. And I think that for some of us who have been doing this work for a long time, it's really energizing to just be like, because sometimes that battle feels uphill, right? And so it's good to know that it's like we're seeing students literally taking to the streets and saying, you know what, like me showing up in this world as a Black man of color or a young man of color, like does not mean that I'm at the back of the line, right? And so our organizations then get to mobilize around that energy. And so those are the things I really think are different, right? Kind of this push for us, particularly in New York City, to not, and all of the organizations on this call and organizations not on the call, just saying, you know what, like let's get in a room, let's figure this out, let's how can we use each other's funding? How can we use each other's resource? How can we use each other's research, right? So that we don't feel like we're talking in all these silos. And then, of course, the movement that is taking place. And be clear, it is a movement that's taking place. And I think that the role that we have in each of our respective organizations is to identify where we show up in the movement for our Black and brown young men.
Awesome stuff there. And Dr. Best, I wanted to ask you, as a university director and based on your own experiences, what advice do you have for organizations and individuals working to create a college-going culture amongst their young men? And how does your program support young men once they get to a CUNY campus?
Yeah, great question. And kind of piggybacking on what Dr. Bethea just said, the idea of just creating those relationships starts so early. And so I know that one thing that Mahaliel, William, Jordan, myself, we've talked about is just how do we kind of create our own pipelines where some don't exist? And to be honest with you, as much as I love CUNY Black Male Initiative and what we've been doing for our community, I know that there's a lot of times, students are going to different programs and popping in and out because they're getting benefits from different programs. And so in a way that which we encourage, of course, but in a way that sometimes creates a silo around our communication amongst each other. And so one thing that we've been doing about thinking about how do we create that college going culture earlier is saying, let's get exposure to each other's students earlier. So one thing that CUNY BMI prioritizes is just connecting with the Eagle Academies, connecting with One Goal, connecting with different community partnerships and different community-based organizations that serve our target demographic, and get them in the door to visit us earlier. We have a program called Discover BMI, where we encourage those who are in middle school and high schools to get to be exposed to our students and come hang out with us in a chat and choose session, even virtually, and see what we do on a weekly basis to just connect with our students and let them be exposed to what college life is like. In person, obviously, it's a lot more fun because you can go visit a campus, get some food, get a sweatshirt, get a t-shirt, some swag, and then go home. But virtually, we still encourage the same thing. And then once those students get to our campus, what we do is we have sort of 6 key components by how we support our students when they get here, but 3 of them are really designed for sort of the inputs and what we're putting, sort of the outputs of what students are getting, I guess. And so they get the culturally competent peer-to-peer mentorship structure. They're getting trained by their BMI director on their campus to learn how to lead their students, to connect with their students, their mentees. And we're paying those mentors to really build those relationships with their mentees and have an ongoing accountability for them so that we know how they're doing academically, socially, emotionally, and even financially in their process. And so for the mentors to get paid, they have to complete their log and let us know that they've met with their mentees. We also have academic enhancements, which looks like peer mentorship, tutoring. It looks like also just getting some hands-on training with maybe a tutor who's working specifically with you from BMI or from the tutoring office. They're also getting that academic support by having textbooks that are maybe being housed at the BMI office that you can borrow if you can't afford to buy your own, maybe even a laptop loan program in some of our cases, in some of our programs. And then finally, we have the social-emotional programming piece, which looks like chat and 2 sessions, barbershop sessions, getting together and just chopping it up with your brothers and your sisters and your journey along the way throughout college. So it's important for me to remember partnerships in this process. We were able to partner with the Young Men's Initiative in Jordan and Stockdale to acquire $40,000 in our partnership to really encourage students to take advantage of the DOE students who are coming from DOE to CUNY to really take advantage of tutoring services that we provide to the students who are at CUNY. And so there's a direct pipeline now from Jordan students to our students. They're getting supported along the way because of Jordan and that program's contribution. We also have our Justice Series, as I mentioned, that the CUNY BMI ambassadors undertake in a way to help us identify local supports that we can provide using our mentorship supports to help support high school and middle school students in the local communities around CUNY college campuses, as well as to identify resources that are available to CUNY BMI students across the CUNY schools that maybe students don't know about. So it might be tutoring supports, it might be internships, it might be volunteer opportunities, it might be some sort of opportunity that we just, our students may not know about. We're compiling them, sending them out to all of our BMI students so they can know what's available to them on campus. And a lot of times, as William mentioned, sometimes students just don't know what the access or the opportunity points are. So we're just trying to create more access points for those students to be able to get opportunities that they may not get otherwise. And so we're excited about how we're growing, and we're going to be looking to collaborate with everyone on this panel even further down the road in many more ways. So we're excited about that.
Awesome stuff. My final question, and I'll open it all to all of you. What recommendations would you have for how the village, which would be families, schools, and community-based organizations, what recommendations would you have for the village in better educating and elevating young men of color in NYC?
My first thought is just write grants together. Look for opportunities to get funding together. A lot of times there's an expectation that we're working in silos, but we will certainly, we certainly have been opening up more conversations with Eagle Academy, with Harlem Children's Zone, and some other local organizations, and not just the ones that are hyper visible, but some of the ones that are also a little bit smaller too, to figure out how do we write grants together and get a little bit smarter about how we acquire resources to support our students and to really tell the story of our programs. Our 31 programs, they do the work. I'm just here to kind of like tout it and share it with the community. So let's share those stories a little bit better, a little bit smarter as we try to acquire more resources for all of us.
I would say the way that we elevate young men of color is that we own and hold ourselves responsible and accountable to their success. And too many times what I've seen is that we kind of like compartmentalize ownership of, and I think that's the beauty of this call, where it's like it's not saying, okay, well, I'm gonna deal with all the kids in 3K to 12, and then you go handle them when they're in college, and then you handle them if they want to be a teacher. I think what families, what everyone has to do in the community is just say, you know what, like if our young men are successful, then we are all successful, and we need to pour in to these young men. We need to serve as role models, regardless of like where they are in the process, and how they present, right? Because that also matters. And so I think that the one of the biggest ways we can build a stronger foundation for our young men is just wrapping our hands around them and saying, no, we own this, we are responsible for your growth, and we're going to ensure that you're successful.
I'll jump in, and I think a way to piggyback off of Mahaliel is just a matter of just really continuing to keep our doors open, continuing to be advocates, to continuing to push the message of, to our students, allow your voice to be heard, because our work and what we put in place to support and to bring resources are based on the population at need, right? Like, these aren't things that we just pull out the sky and say, hey, this sounds good. The work that we do comes from the voice of the people that we serve. Keyword serve, and just understanding that, understanding that don't allow yourself to be marginalized. Don't allow your programs to be marginalized. As we all continue to work together and we continue to grow, we continue to pool resources between one another, we all understand the bottom line is to move forward, and however that by any means necessary, as Malcolm would say, right? So if that means that I might need to reach across the bridge to MBK and say, hey, I really think we should create this forum because this is going to impact the society. This is affecting our community as a whole, and we need to put this in place. Or if it's a matter of, even within the CUNY system, of saying, you know what, these are issues that are plaguing our Black and Brown students. What can we do as leaders? How can we unite, and how can we put these forums together to give our students a stronger voice? So just understanding the resources that we as leaders even have, and tapping into those resources and really continuing to not continue to be five fingers, but to come together and become a fist.
Yeah, I would say that, to the teachers, the educators watching this, y'all have the most important job in the world. Literally, the next generation is all in your hands, right? Like, y'all have the most important job, and we celebrate you and we thank you for the work that you're doing. I wouldn't be here without incredible educators in my life, without incredible educators in my mother's life, right? So y'all are really guiding this next generation. Y'all are our community's leaders. So we support you. We want to continue to invest in you, and tell us, how we can be better in our positions to help y'all as well. So please reach out to us.
Awesome. Well, I would like to thank all the panelists and all the viewers for attending the And Still We Rise, the Education and Elevation of Young Men of Color NYC panel, brought to you by the Young Men's Initiative, the Black Men Initiative, NYC Men's Teeth, and My Brother's Keeper NYC. Thank you all so much, and I'll bring it to Dr. Best.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Denver. You did an amazing job, and thank you so much for connecting us in this conversation. For those who are here in the panel, William Anders, you're my brother. Thank you so much. Dr. Mahaliel, Bethea, who is just a rock star. We're so lucky to have you here. And Jordan, you've been doing such great work. And so we're so proud of just all of you. And, at the end of the day, even if you weren't on newspapers and on breakfast clubs or whatever, we know that you guys are just valuable intrinsically because of your passion for supporting this population. And with Shawn's 5 steps that we need to talk about that and have a recap to figure out how we can build on his feedback. So again, thank you to Shawn Duff for joining us today. We're excited about your work and promoting even your book that's dropping in just over a month or so. And to all of our supporters, all of the people who are behind the scenes, our supervisors and bosses that allow us to do this work and to be so free to be able to connect across these lines of work and these lines of division that are existing sometimes, and to kind of break down those barriers. We appreciate you for supporting us. Thank you for making it possible. And please follow us on social media. Just look up NYC Men Teach, look up Young Men's Initiative, look up in New York City NBK, look up CUNY BMI. You'll be able to find all of us on media. Follow us. We'll tag each other. We'll tag you in as well, and look forward to some more collaboration from us in the near future. So thank you so much. Hopefully we'll see you again as we're thinking about future events for connecting us and connecting you as a community. Have a great night, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.